Gopal Jai Jai Govind Jai Jai Gopal Jai Govind Jai Jai Gopal Jai Jai Govind Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Radha Ramana Govinda Jai Jai Gopala Jai 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 Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Gopala Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Gopala Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Radha, Govinda Jai Radha, Govinda Jai Jai Radha, Govinda Jai Govinda Jai Gopal Jai Jayo, Govinda Jai Gopal Jai Okay. So, the story I wanted to tell was that I was saying that if we're disturbed in one area of life, the spiritual way to deal with it would be to be able to control ourselves enough that it doesn't affect other areas of our life, so that we can go on. And you know the second chapter of the Gita, it's all about being steady. Happiness, distress, heat, cold, loss, gain, victory, defeat. So Krishna's telling Arjuna, this is a spiritual position, that although things are disturbed, you're steady. And so Arjuna is disturbed, and Krishna's saying, don't be disturbed, do your dharma. And so by doing your dharma and focusing on that, you'll overcome the disturbance, the duality. So that's a spiritual quality that we should learn. And in regards to that person you're talking about, if he could learn that whatever's going on at home, to kind of put that in a box and go to work and not be disturbed, then that would be how at least what I would try to guide him in that way. And if he chants Hare Krishna, it'll be easier every morning. You know. Anyway, so the story is that in 1970, it appeared to Srila Prabhupada that some people in India were envious of his success, and they began saying things that were critical of him, and that had filtered in to the movement. And Prabhupada saw symptoms of that within the society, that his own disciples had been contaminated by some negative propaganda. And he saw symptoms in not only what was said, but what they were doing. And Prabhupada was in anxiety, and you think, well, a pure devotee in anxiety, that doesn't make sense. And he's never in anxiety, but he was in anxiety over the movement, and he saw the movement as Krishna. So he was in anxiety over Krishna, like Mother Yasoda is in anxiety if Krishna doesn't eat. So it was transcendental, but it was experienced as, it was definitely anxiety. He was stressed out. And he left America and went to India. And he felt that the solution was to go to India, and that he was being criticized, even in some ways minimized by his own disciples, and he wanted to go back to India. And we had heard, I was in Los Angeles off and on during that time, and we had heard something about this, but we really didn't know what it was. And in reading the Lilamrita, I found out more about it, what was going on, and Prabhupada was staying up at night, he wasn't sleeping, he was in anxiety and so forth. And what I found so amazing was that I was there at that time in Los Angeles, and I had no idea that Prabhupada was in anxiety, because his schedule was normal, his classes were normal, he was affectionate and friendly to the devotees, everything was normal, but internally this thing was going on, but it didn't affect him externally. And the way it was described in Lilamrita, that Prabhupada was extremely disturbed and extremely concerned that this poison that was entering could destroy his fledgling movement. And so my point is, there was no external sign in Prabhupada that this was going on. And so it's a transcendental quality, that in spite of all this disturbance, he was carrying on. There's another story. You like stories? And I think this is a good story for the topic. There was a devotee who was very disturbed, and I think the disturbance was coming from the men who were belittling the women to some degree. Because this lady joined very early on in the movement, and early on in the movement there really wasn't much discrimination between men and women, and Prabhupada was pretty much as open to the women as he was to the men. But at some point there was a shift, and there was some difference in the way God brothers were now treating the women from how they used to and how Prabhupada was treating them. And she was very upset, very disturbed. And she went to Prabhupada and explained what was going on, how discouraged she was, and she said, I quit. Something like, I quit or I give up. That's it, I can't do this. And Prabhupada said, you have no right to quit. If anyone has a right to quit, it's me. And then he went on to explain all the difficulties he went through, how he came alone. Nobody would support him. They didn't support him going. They didn't support him when he was here. And not only did he not get support, many people criticized him, or at least some people criticized him. The people that he expected would support him, some of them criticized him. And then he explained the difficulties he went through. And in the early days in New York, sometimes he would go to bed hungry. Like, nobody knows that. And sometimes he wasn't sleeping because he was hungry. Did you know that? So he was explaining this. He was actually having hunger pains, and we didn't know this. And he said, no, I got no encouragement. So he said, if anyone has a right to be discouraged, it's me. He said, but I'm not one to be discouraged. So he's showing that, like, you have every reason to be discouraged, but you're not. You're not giving into that. And I think that's such an exemplary qualification. There are many devotees in our movement who have a lot of reasons to be discouraged, but they're not. Many devotees have reasons why they shouldn't really even be in Iskcon anymore. Maybe they weren't treated fairly or whatever. Reasons which we could objectively say would probably push most people out, but they're still here. They had that forbearance and tolerance to stay and work within the system and to serve Prabhupada. So that's an exalted quality. And as we were saying before, criticizing or leaving is quite easy. Staying and working through it is not. And that's what Prabhupada wants us to do. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's definitely a spiritual concept of being beyond duality. And just an interesting concept from a corporate perspective. Krishna, you could say, that verse Krishna says, don't be attached to winning or losing or victory or defeat, success or failure. So, in Krishna's eyes, success is not that you succeed, because he's saying don't be attached to succeeding and don't be upset if you fail, but success is in the endeavor, which is a completely different concept of success, right? I was going to write a book called Success Beyond Success, and it was going to explain this concept. Because everybody's right, isn't everybody enamored by success? And Krishna's saying success is not success, but Dharma is success. This is what you're supposed to do. So you have your Dharma, and maybe you're externally not successful, but you did it in a detached way, so you're successful. So your friend's duty is to go to work and do his best. That's his success. And not allow the situation at home to disturb him. That's the spiritual position. And as I was saying, as a good Sudra, not in a derogatory way, but in a positive way, that's what a Shudra does. They're dedicated to their master, so they perform their best. And so they resolve their issues so they can perform their best for their master. And the company's their master, they pay them. So a good worker does his best, right? And an average worker doesn't. And most people are average workers. So if he wants to be, amongst the top employees, that's what he does. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that okay? Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering loss or gain, victory, defeat, happiness or distress. And in doing so, you will never incur sin. That's Dharma. And Arjuna says, I don't feel like it. And Krishna says, he doesn't say this, but if we wanted to bring it into a modern context, Krishna could say something like, I don't care how you feel, or it doesn't matter how you feel. This is what you need to do. Step up to the plate. Don't allow your feelings to deter you. That's what's actually happening. Although nobody really analyzes that second chapter from a psychological perspective, from an emotional, but if you did, that's actually the gist of that conversation. Arjuna is all about feeling, Krishna is all about Dharma. And Dharma and Dharma and feeling are two different things. You may feel like doing your Dharma, that's great. You may not feel like doing your Dharma. And Arjuna doesn't feel like doing his Dharma. So we have juxtaposed in the Gita, feeling versus Dharma, right? Krishna's saying, Dharma, Dharma, doesn't matter if you're success, just do your Dharma. Arjuna's saying, I don't feel like it. It's not a good idea. I feel like begging. I feel like being a Brahmin. And so it's all feeling versus Dharma. And so we in the Western culture are high on feeling and low on Dharma. We're motivated much more by feeling than Dharma, especially the generations now. Maybe 100 years ago it was more Dharma. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, they met their spouse on the day they got married, and they were married for 60 years. They're very dharmic, they could do that. And now it's like, honey, I don't feel it anymore. It's over. So we're very much... So for us, we have a problem with acting against our feeling, isn't it? Because our culture is saturated with sense gratification, and sense gratification is all about what do you want, what do you like, what's cool. Do you like this? You want to go here? Do you like this? You got this app? You got the software? Does it feel good? Is your chair comfortable? Is that soap smell good? It's so sensual now. And we do so little austerity, and our whole concept of happiness is evolving around how things feel. And there was a time when people's happiness evolved around Dharma, doing their duty. So it's hard for us to be dharmic, because we respond more to get inspired by what feels good. Isn't it? I don't want to work with you guys because I don't feel good working with you. Isn't it? Can be. I don't like the vibe here. I'm out of here. Okay, there is some sense to that, but it dominates too much, I think. This one person was talking about marriage, and he said, rather than find someone new to love the one you found. So that's the Dharma, like this marriage isn't working, I'm looking. Well, love the one you found. It's not about committing to this one, it's about commitment. It's not about who you're committed to, it's about the fact you're already married, and it's just commitment in itself. We don't think that way. I can commit to you, but I can't commit to you because you're more beautiful than you. No, it's about the fact you made a commitment. You didn't commit to beauty, you committed to the marriage. And so we don't think that way. That's our weakness. So when you look at things this way, it really shows you where this culture is going and what's it made of, because 100 years ago it wasn't like this. I heard, maybe you've heard this also, that in business around the turn of the century, at least in America and probably here, they didn't have contracts, they had handshakes. And whatever was said, and that was it, and people followed it. Now you have contracts and they break it. Isn't it? Yeah. And then it was handshakes. Now that was all you needed, was a handshake and a person's word. So people had integrity, which means they're acting on Dharma, not how they feel. Like, well, I don't feel like doing this anymore. Well, but I promise I'll do it. There was a man, and Prabhupada asked him to help us, so he helped us. And then he helped us in many ways, but a lot of the ways he had to help us was to kind of put back or solve problems we created, because he was in the government. So if we made mistakes, he could kind of patch it up. So he was patching up a lot of mistakes. And he told me once, he said, you've made so many mistakes, and I'm kind of tired of helping you. Because, I guide you to do it a certain way and you do it the other way, then I have to bail you out. And then he was, thinking to himself, he said, I don't know why I continue to help you. Because to him it didn't make sense. It was just, he was past his threshold of tolerance. And then he said, I promised Prabhupada I would help you, and that's why I do it. So he was going against his feeling to honor his commitment. And he's not alive now. If he were alive, he'd be 100 years old. It's that generation. That's how they thought. No, I don't even want to help you. I don't even, I've helped you so much, and I'm pretty frustrated with you, but I continue to help because Prabhupada asked me. And that was the basic reason he did it, more than anything. We don't have that so much now. So that also, it requires emotional control. To, work through it, even though I feel one way, but to be able to tolerate that in order to get the job done in a steady way. Because it should be done. That's a great quality. Yes, sir.
Prabhu, so how do we know that this is the right thing we are doing right now? I mean, we feel happy that we heard Krishna is pleased when we are happy. So
well, sometimes it's obvious, like you're asked to do a certain service. So it's like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. I don't feel like doing it, but I've been asked, so I accept that. That's Krishna's desire. And sometimes it's just obvious something is right and it should be done. Like I should chant my rounds in the morning, I shouldn't sleep. I should only eat 3 chapatis, not 23. So some things are obvious. I shouldn't be spending so much time talking to this brahmacharini because I'm a brahmachari or I'm a single man. So some things are obvious. And if you're, a lot of it involves self-awareness, just to be able to admit that I'm doing something wrong and I'm acting on feeling more than what's right, and to be aware of it. And like you were saying, suppressing emotions, sometimes we're not able to admit.
So how to reconcile that?
My personal experience is that you have to want to be aware to become aware. And if you want to trick yourself, you won't become aware. And it's so subtle, you won't even know that you're hiding it from yourself. That's the problem. Like for you, everything's fine, but it's not. But you think it's fine because you're not willing to look. Your ego is blocking you from admitting that it's not fine, and that you can improve, or that you're doing something wrong. And a lot of that also can come from attachment to the enjoyment I'm getting from it. So maybe you're enjoying doing service with that girl, and people are saying, you shouldn't, because, it's just, no, but they asked me to do that service, and there's no one else to do it, it's okay, I'm strong, But actually, you're enjoying it, but you're saying there's no problem, but you don't want to admit that you're enjoying it, because you think you're brahmacharis. And you think you're a brahmachari, and a brahmachari would enjoy that. And, I'm brahmachari, and I'm strong, and nothing's going to happen. So you play this whole illusion out in your head, instead of just saying, actually, I probably do like doing it with her, and therefore I shouldn't. So you have to be willing enough, transparent enough to admit it. There was a TED Talk about self-deception. And the lady who gave the talk had a PhD in this or related subjects. So she studied it quite well through research. And basically her basic premise was that we all lie to ourselves. We tell ourselves things that aren't true. So she gave examples like, it's late at night, you're hungry, you go in the kitchen, I'll just eat a few potato chips. Never in your life did you ever eat a few potato chips, but you tell yourself you will, and you eat the whole bag, because you always eat the whole bag. But you won't admit you eat the whole bag. Or I'll just check a few emails at 11 o'clock. You've never been able to check your email in less than an hour. No, I'll just take 5 minutes. And thing, this is, I can do this, it's not going to happen. But every time you do it, it happens, and you're not even honest enough with yourself to admit it. So we have this mechanism that protects our sense gratification and protects our ego. So because I want to enjoy it, so I tell myself, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'll just eat one. So that's kind of scary, isn't it? And I did a series on self-deceit. I don't know if it's on my website. mahatmadas.com is my website. I don't know if it's there, but if it is there, check it out. It's quite interesting. And so my personal experience is, if you're open to see what's wrong, Krishna will show you. And if you're not open, you won't see it, even if it's obvious. You know the verse, Matirna Krishna Parata Satova Mito Vipadyate Grihavatanam. If you're attached to enjoying this world, nobody can stop you. Not even God. Nobody can convince you. You're on the wrong path. So if you want to go to hell, nobody can stop you. And if you want to go back to Krishna, Krishna will show you exactly everything that's stopping you. Isn't it? So it's good and it's scary, because you can deceive yourself and you can see clearly. But I think many of us have trouble admitting our mistakes because we wouldn't know how to deal with ourselves if we admitted that we're not good at something. We would get depressed or something. We just don't want to say, I'm not good at this. And, we have to come to grips with that. It's okay. You don't have to be good at everything. It's all right. Everybody's good at something. Prabhupada said everybody's useful for something. Once some devotee said, I'm useless, Prabhupada. He said, no, everybody's useful for something. So in Krishna's eyes, if you can wash pots, you're useful for something. It's okay. You don't have to be the temple president. Another example. Okay, I want to become humble. So how do I become humble? The answer is when you want to become humble. Because if you don't want to become humble, I can't really help you. Because whatever I say is going to fall into deaf ears. So there has to be a desire on your part to develop whatever quality it is you want to develop. There has to be some desire. That's my experience. Yes?
Why are we losing our inspiration?
What?
Why are we losing our inspiration?
There could be many reasons. We could become very negative and just be focusing on everything that's going wrong and become discouraged. We could have bad sadhana. We could be doing a service that doesn't inspire us. We could be having bad relations. We don't know how to have good relationships. There could be so many things that can undermine our inspiration. We could not be studying Prabhupada's books. Because it's a scientific process. So if there's something important you're not doing, or something important you're doing wrong, it can undermine your enthusiasm. So you're not getting inspiration because you're not tasting. If you're not tasting, then where's your motive? Then your motive will come from the material world. For many devotees, it's just that their service isn't inspiring. It's not in alignment with their nature. They're doing accounting and they're artists. They're cleaning the temple and they're writers. And it's just like, it's not really inspiring them. So that could also be a problem. Like something's coming out of you, the inspiration's coming out of you, but you're not allowed to express it. And then you're doing service with something that's not aligned with your nature, so that may be why you're not inspired. Which is usually the main reason. And bad sadhana, and bad japa. That's my experience. Especially bad japa and a service that doesn't inspire you, and or bad relationships. Or bad prasadam. Sometimes. Yes?
It's in regards of what you mentioned about the other's behavior.
Yes.
When we think that others' behavior is responsible for how we
Feel.
feel.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, what about the others when we...
When they say, you make me mad?
When we notice that we might somehow affect others by our behavior,
Okay.
how we do act in such a situation, because this situation might lead us to suppressing some maybe even part of our nature or something like that.
You give an
Or that can be also an indication that actually for you think that you're acting right, but actually it might be something slightly out of order.
Yeah, definitely. But the first one, well, the second one I think is very clear. If people are getting upset, like I know devotees, and wherever they go, people get upset, and they always think it's their fault. But it's like, okay, but it's happened everywhere you've gone. So it seems obvious you should be thinking that you're doing something to cause people to become upset with you. If we don't, I think we're deceiving ourselves, and then we can't improve ourselves, and the same problem is going to happen. Your first point was, I can explain it again. I wasn't clear, or I forgot.
What was the first point?
You're acting in a way
that somehow you see that others might get maybe not disturbed, but you see that because of some of your behavior, others get affected.
and you feel that
you feel somehow a little bit guilty and not so comfortable.
okay.
And then you think, oh, maybe the other time I should not act in this way, because you see the person now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
But
is it just like low self-esteem? You don't feel confident of what you're doing?
not necessarily. It could be,
Yeah.
or it could be sensitivity that you don't want to upset them.
Yeah.
But low self-esteem is pretty pervasive. It doesn't just come in one place. So if it were low self-esteem, it would kind of general way you process everything. That you're not good at anything, and people don't like you, and people criticize you. It's a kind of a global approach. If it's just one event, sometimes we do upset people, and sometimes it just means that person's very sensitive, and we have to take note of that. And maybe we didn't do anything wrong. I mean, in your life, you will upset people, even for not, and they'll just get upset. Whether you do this or that, they'll get upset. Some people will. So, sometimes we have to be able to say, okay, I didn't do anything wrong, but they get upset. So, I mean, I'm in that situation a lot. And I ask myself that question. And one of the answers I come up with is, in some cases, there's nothing I can do that won't upset them. I don't know if you have that experience, but sometimes it's like that. Or it's so difficult dealing with them. It's like walking on eggshells, and you have to make a decision whether you want to even interact with them. Because they're damaged people, and damaged people get upset quite easily. And so, if you see they're damaged, then you'll just be sensitive around them. Maybe somewhat compassionate. Or maybe somewhat distant. Usually they'll end up distancing themselves from you, because you'll frustrate them, because you won't give them what they want. And nobody will give them what they want, because what they want, nobody can give. Because they have to give it to themselves, and they won't give it to themselves. Because they don't love themselves, and they want love from other people. And when they don't get it, they turn against people, so they can't get love from anybody, because everyone ends up turning against them, because they turn against them, and they can't give themselves love. So, when you see people like that, it's probably better to just keep a distance. At least in my experience, because I never really resolved with people like that. Every time I try to resolve, it just gets worse. And they hold on to things from the past. So you can't resolve the present because the past is unresolved for them. and they have low self-esteem. So they're upset with you because you weren't giving them what they needed, what they expected, but nobody can really give it to them because of what they need is excessive, abnormal. You have experience with people like that? Yeah.
More what I wanted to ask, it's like when you start blaming yourself, even though the situation might be that actually you were right.
Yes.
But you start sometimes judging yourself that, oh, maybe I did a mistake.
That could be low self-esteem.
Yeah? From my side, not from the other
Yeah.
side.
I mean, from a spiritual point of view, it's nice to look at it that way. But from a psychological point of view, it could be dangerous if it's not true and you have low self-esteem. Like if you have healthy self-esteem, you could say, well, maybe I did something wrong. And it's not going to bother you. But if you have low self-esteem, yeah, I always do everything wrong, nobody likes me.
I would like to ask a question about the service, what you mentioned, that how devotees could get frustrated if they are not doing the service according to their nature.
Mm-hmm.
It recently came up actually in the Ashram Hospitality. I sort of asked the question, but is it not is it actually important to have the do service according to our nature, or is it only secondary?
Uh-huh.
Because I personally, if I do a service which is not really sort of to my nature, I don't always feel that devotion in it.
Yeah.
And I really, I like to do my service with devotion.
Yes.
And if I don't feel that, I feel bad about myself. And I asked if it would be nice to organize the services in that way, but I understand that it might be difficult to please everybody because the service needs to be done.
Well, I can give a theoretical answer and a practical answer. And the theoretical answer is that in a perfect ideal situation, the answer is yes, everyone should be engaged in a way which inspires them. That'll be the best for them. And in many ways, it'll be the best for the temple, but the temple needs to be cleaned, and the prasadam needs to be cooked, and this and that. So the problem you run into is that if everybody does just what they want, that may not happen. The other problem you run into is if everybody is not engaged to their nature, and a year from now, none of them may be here. So then you have nobody. So there's some balance in there. And generally, within our movement, as a person stays within the movement, they tend to gravitate or are allowed to gravitate into the areas where they can serve, which are also areas that are needed, but may not be fundamentally needed, but still needed. And as new people come, the older ones can be relieved of their cooking and cleaning and so forth to do these other services. Service, there's two aspects to service. One aspect is the service itself that needs to be done. The other aspect is how that service affects the devotee. So if a devotee is engaged in doing service which is inspiring, that's very good for them. It helps them tremendously. If the devotee is engaged in doing service that doesn't inspire them, for some devotees, that eventually can be a problem for them. And they can lose enthusiasm. And if that's happening to you, at least you should be aware of it. That, like you're not doing well in Krishna consciousness, and you realize if I could just go out on book distribution, I would be so inspired. But staying back, cleaning the kitchen and cooking, it's like I'm losing my enthusiasm, my rounds are not good, etc. So then you would talk to the authorities and just say, this is my realization. And, I'm older, I kind of am in touch with my nature, I know, and I understand, I know what I need to do, and I understand that we should be willing to do everything, but I also need an outlet for this other, so can we have a balance? So, because the service is meant for you, to help you also.
Would there be also an aspect that we actually need to be humble, and just do the service?
Yes, yeah, that's part of it, but you may humbly bloop also. In other words, if you're humbly engaged for the next 5 years in something that's like undermining all your enthusiasm, then, and it makes your spiritual life difficult, then you could argue that that's not being humble, that's just being stupid. That you're going down, and so you need to be engaged in something that's going to push you back up. And you can be steady doing that, and you'll be well situated. So that's kind of like you're saving yourself. Understanding that part of service is for us. It's not always practical, but I'm saying if it gets to a critical position where you feel like, I can't really continue like this, then you want to say something. There's a funny story of a devotee, and he's an actor, and he was part of a troupe which performed during Prabhupada's time, and in fact Prabhupada paid for this troupe. They used to travel the world and do dramas, right? So shortly after Prabhupada left, somehow the troupe broke up, and because he's an actor, he needed to act, so he joined an acting troupe because there was no acting to do in the temple. And one night I was at a park near the temple, and there was an amphitheater. We couldn't see inside, but we could hear, and we heard Shakespeare, like King Lear, and we heard him. They go, I think that's so-and-so's voice. I was with my wife, and they go, oh yeah, that's his voice. And then I said, yeah. If he can't act for Krishna, it's his nature to act, so he's going to act, right? If I couldn't chant Hare Krishna, then I would sing Baby I Love You. Because I have to sing. That's just my nature. I will sing, I can guarantee you. I will sing. Whatever, if I can't sing Hare Krishna, I'll sing something. So we have to be aware of that, So if the temple won't let me chant Hare Krishna, I have to beg them, please let me chant Hare Krishna so I don't have to chant Baby I Love You. Or Baby You Broke My Heart. Why did you leave me, baby? So that's an important. So there's a balance there, right? And also, if you're living in a temple, obviously you're going to be more engaged. You're, I want to say susceptible, but I don't have a better word right now. You're susceptible to be engaged in any way they want you, and you also can explain to them where your inspiration is, and understanding how the temple works, where you could. Right?
I'm doing the service what I like, so
Oh, that's good.
It's quite in my nature. It was more for general because I also discuss with other devotees and they tell me things, and it was more general.
Well, Prabhupada, yeah. So my answer, you means everybody in my answer, and Prabhupada said when somebody's coming to Krishna consciousness, find out what they like to do and engage them that way. It's like, okay. All right, we got these 20 services to do. And if you want to learn surrender, best place for you is the toilet today, the pots tomorrow, the midnight, vegetable cut up, on Thursday, then you'll know what surrender is, right? You want to hear a funny story? A sad and funny story? When somebody wanted, this was 1972, and someone wanted to move in the temple, we put them through a test, and we had an old van that didn't run. And before we let them live in the temple or the guest room, so you have to spend a week in the van and go to Mangalartik every day. So that was like the test, So then when we got smart, we made nice guest rooms, which were really comfortable and bright, and, said, you want to stay over in the temple? Yeah. So we made more devotees that way, obviously. So, So it's not always that surrender is surrender. Sometimes people surrender themselves right out of the temple because they can't do it. So the leaders have to be sensitive to that. And a leader understands, as I said, that service is not only for service sake, but it's also for the sake of the devotees' advancement. Yes. Nikhil Ananda.
How can we help someone who's experienced several failures in their life and they feel responsible for in each and every aspect that they're failing?
Oh, they're depressed about it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. That's how. What did you learn from those failures? How can you improve? What's your vision for the future? How are you going to make it better? You always have to act from today, because if you don't, you'll be trapped by yesterday. And if you're trapped by yesterday, you're going to keep doing the same thing. It's just it recycles itself. Anything in your life that you don't want that's recycling is connected with some belief or something that happened to you in the past that's controlling you. So you have to be able to break your faith in the past. Because if you think right now it's just going to keep happening, this never works, it never worked for me, probably there's a belief there that's operating, which is why it's not working. And you have to understand the belief and change it. That itself is a belief that nothing's going to work, or it's going to keep working this way. That's a belief. Which is a good belief if it's a good thing. And it's not a good belief if it's a bad thing. So, understandably, you'll be controlled by the past because things keep happening that way, but it's kind of a vicious, it's kind of a catch-22. It's happening that way because you're allowing yourself to believe it's going to happen that way. Because you believe it's going to happen that way, it happens that way, and when it happens that way, it strengthens the belief. You understand?
Yeah, but I mean, even if things that you don't anticipate to fail, and they fail, because then you're not, whatever's happened in the past has happened. But then, say, for example, you set up a project, and you don't anticipate it fail, but then it fails anyway. How can we sort of...
It could be a belief that you're not aware of. Could be of material nature, that just materially the project wasn't meant to fail, meant to succeed. You didn't have the proper facility or manpower, knowledge. Sometimes you have amazing things, amazing projects, and they're totally nobody's ready for them. They're 10 years ahead of their time, and nobody can buy into it. You don't get the buy-in. 10 years later, everybody's ready to do it. There could be many reasons. But if you want an internal reason, then you have to look at the belief and ask yourself, what would someone have to believe to not be successful in this project? And you might be thinking you had no negative belief, but you might have and you don't know it. Because there are what are called transparent beliefs. And transparent beliefs are beliefs we don't see. And we become aware of them by asking ourselves the question, what would someone have to believe, and fill in the blank, for this to happen? Every time I do a project, it fails. Okay, what would someone have to believe that every time they do a project, it fails? And you have to start thinking. I'm not good, I don't know how to manage, whatever. And you go through a list of so many beliefs, and you'll come across one that you'll just know, that's it. It's just your whole body will change when you, that's the belief, that's what I thought. So that could be a reason. You could say Krishna wants you to be humble. So he's not letting you succeed because you're proud. And he knows you'll become prouder. So he's going to keep you failing until you become humble. That could be. There's so many reasons. I was going through this period where I was having so many projects, and every project like halfway would just stop. It would never get finished. I'd be like, what's going on? Am I like doubting or something? It was like, this one, this is it, and then that one, and this one, like all these things, and then halfway through they just like blow up. Everybody drops out of the project. No, I'm too busy, I can't help. Like, what's that about? So we have to investigate, what possibilities are there? Am I afraid to succeed, so I just destroy him? On the psychic level, I discourage everyone because I don't want to succeed? Who knows? Do I not want the responsibility of those projects, so I let them fall apart? Do I doubt myself? Did I discourage people? Were they too big and they could have never succeeded? Am I just foolish? I never had the resources for them and I was thinking they would succeed and that was stupid. So many reasons.
So how do we come to the right conclusion? How do we know that this is the right?
Keep asking the question and coming up with answers till something makes sense. Yes?
You were mentioning about bad japa.
Bad japa.
So to cooperate with devotees, you need to have good japa ultimately also.
This is a good question.
No, my question.
That was a statement.
No, to
Okay.
connect it.
Okay,
because-
okay.
So sometime when
I was questioning that statement, but anyway, ask
You
your.
were questioning.
I'm questioning the validity of that statement. To cooperate with devotees, you have to have good japa. But go ahead and ask. You ask, but
Right, I mean, if you question that, then you can. But it was just connected. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Off topic.
No. No, this is an excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. To cooperate with devotees, do we have to have good japa? Prabhupada said when he was talking about Gaudiya Math, I don't know if he was talking about the Gaudiya Math, but he was talking about senior devotees not cooperating. He said even very advanced devotees sometimes have a difficult time working together. So if advanced devotee means good japa, which I think it does, Prabhupada's saying there are other factors that can contribute to cooperation aside from your spiritual purity and advancement. Because, whether you want to admit it or not, but you probably all know, there are people who aren't devotees who can cooperate better than many devotees. And they don't have any japa, what to speak of bad japa. So it's not just that you're a good devotee that guarantees you'll cooperate. All these things we're talking about are things that we need to work on, whether we're a devotee or not. We need to work on these things in order to work better together. Does that make sense? So I think oftentimes we think being Krishna consciousness is a panacea for everything, when not necessarily. Like, you may be emotionally mature and chant really good rounds and still not be able to process your emotions well, even after 20 years of good japa. You may still be bitter 20 years later. So, and you may not be. The chanting may have purified you, and it may not. It depends on your nature. So don't think you can neglect a problem and chant it away. I wrote an article about that recently, I think. Or it's coming out sometime. But it's kind of like, don't think you can chant away your problems, because a lot of them you can't. You have to actually work on them. And the concept of chanting them away is actually avoidance. It can be. I can be actually running away from my problem in the name of chanting them away, because I don't want to face them. I just want to chant them away. And a lot of times they don't go away, because my chanting isn't that good that they would go away. Or I have a certain disposition or nature or emotional makeup, and the holy name's not going to change that. I actually have to work on it. What the holy name may do is make me aware of it, give me the desire to improve it. Things like your spiritual advancement can make you more transparent in seeing your ego. It can give you a motivation to work on it, but you still have to work on it in most cases, or in many cases. And I know everyone may not agree with that because it doesn't appear to coincide with some shlokas of Bhagavatam, but this is just my personal experience, what I see. And so we have this phenomena. The Bhagavatam says something and we see apparently something different, and we have to kind of amalgamate them and make sense out of it. And so I think sometimes we overestimate what the holy name is supposed to do, and we think it's supposed to do everything. So a lot of devotees chant really good rounds have really bad marriages. That we all know. That's not debatable, right? There's some difficult marriages in our movement, and the people in those marriages chant really good rounds. How is that? Because they're not good relationship people. That's their nature. Does that make sense? Or, yeah. So it's like, when they go into marriage therapy, the therapist doesn't say chant better rounds. He goes, sit down, let's talk about this. You're not understanding this, you're not understanding this. This is what a woman's like, this is what a man's like. These are your wife's needs, these are your husband's needs. He needs this, she needs that. They need to understand all these things. And they've been chanting for 20 years and they don't understand those things. Someone has to tell them. So sometimes the problems they're not on that transcendental level. They're just on a very mundane level, and a person has to adjust. Does that make sense? Anyway, Prabhupada said that even advanced devotees sometimes don't get along. So that's a pretty powerful statement, saying that you can be advanced, but on another level have difficulty getting along. Did I tell the story? I told the story yesterday about the Covey Franklin devotee who's got a center, and there's another center in the city with another devotee, and they don't get along. Well, the devotee in charge of the other center is very advanced, but he's very fixed in how he does things, and it doesn't work with the other temple. And chanting Hare Krishna I don't think is going to change that nature of his. Is that all right?
My question was actually,
But I wanted
my
to,
statement, but it was wrong. It's good.
yeah. But anyway, I wanted to address this point because it's important.
It
So
was good. But,
okay. So ask your question now.
when we get in the mechanical mode of chanting,
Okay.
so we can't really call out. How can we get out of it?
Oh, get out of mechanic. There's a CD back there called the Japa Workshop. 50 hours of answers to that question. You are not a robot. You are a person, and Krishna is a person. And Krishna wants your heart. That's what japa is about. That's what kirtan's about. It's not about the number, it's about the heart. The number is just the standard that we agree to. But to think that you've accomplished something just by chanting a number, you've accomplished very little. Or all you've accomplished just by completing a number, if you haven't chanted properly, is the number. You've accomplished a vow. But on the side of proper chanting, you haven't really accomplished much. So once you understand that, it's not just the number, but it's quality, then you'll realize the number is one thing, the quality is what's really the essence. Does that make sense? The number is important because you vow to do it, but the number is not important if you don't chant well. 1 bad round or 16 bad rounds, they're still bad. Right? Let's have a mathematical question. If 1 round is bad, how bad are 16? 16 times bad, 16 times worse. That's a fact, 16 bad rounds, 15 more bad rounds doesn't really help. It only helps because you vowed to chant 16. But in terms of the purification you're getting from the holy name, 15 more bad rounds doesn't really help you. Some people may say, well, at least if you're chanting, there's a chance you'll chant well. Okay, that's true. But practically speaking, it's only helping you keep your vow. But it's not actually helping you in any other way if you're committing offense while you're chanting. Does that make sense, or is that hard to accept? That's our experience anyway. You have that experience. You know, when you chant 16 bad rounds, you don't feel anything. Except maybe some guilt and some depression, right? But you don't, where's the inspiration coming from bad chanting? I can do kirtan, and I could be sitting here doing kirtan, meditating not on the holy name, but how you're all thinking, oh, he chants so nicely. So what am I chanting? Am I chanting Hare Krishna? Not chanting Hare Krishna. I'm chanting me, look at me, look at me. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. That's what I'm chanting, right? I sing so well, I'm so attractive, don't you love to hear me chant? That's what I'm chanting. So I can do that all day. And not only will there be no progress, but my ego will be being blown up the more I chant. Right? So we have to be careful. But if you listen to that CD, it's explained there. I hate to be so blunt, but someone has to be blunt. And if, so I take that as my service, just to be blunt, because it's true and we need to confront it.
It's just, I really like it because I think it's really important to be honest with
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yes.
And then I believe I came to this realization recently, and I feel so much better because if I want to improve myself, I need to be honest with myself.
Yeah. And once you're honest with yourself, then you can just be okay with yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a big relief. You don't have to pretend anymore. Who are you pretending to be? What mask are you wearing? do you want other people to think about you? That you're a nice guy, you're intelligent, you're a good devotee. What do you want them to think? We're so occupied about what we want people to think about us. That takes a lot of energy, doesn't it? And if it doesn't matter what people think about you and you can just be yourself, you release all that energy that you're putting on to hold up the mask. Now you can use it to make advancement. Right? And you can go, I can just be me. It's okay to be me. You can make a t-shirt. It's okay to be me. Pass them out in the brahmacharya ashram. We're not going to kill you for being you. It's like, we won't judge you. It's fine, Yes? We have a CD on. It's called The Power of, what's it called? Honesty. What's it? The heart of a Vaishnava. The power of humility and self-honesty. So we talk about that on that. It's all about false ego and pride and criticism and all that good stuff. It's kind of like the job profile of the demon. Arrogance, pride, conceit, harshness, right? It's in the Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't say the job description of the demon, but basically it says these are the demoniac qualities. Harshness, conceit, pride, arrogance, like that. So, the clock has struck 9 7 minutes ago, and I know we could go on all night, but in respect of the time, I think we will have to end. But if you're excited to learn more, tomorrow we are in South London. What? East London. Friday in Crawley. Saturday at the Manor and Saturday afternoon at Reading. Guilt in the morning, marriage in the evening. And Sunday, private. South. Are these locations on my website? Yeah. So if you want to go to these programs, mahatmadas.com, you go there, the schedule will be there. If you want to learn more about what I do with devotees, then you can go there. And we have a company called Sattva where we do things like this for non-devotees. So that's exciting. And anyone who wants to help with that, we need writers, editors, proofreaders, video editors, audio editors, marketers, artists, people with lots of money who would like to help. You don't have to have a lot, just people who have money who would like to help donate or invest. And people who can raise money, and anything that's required in promoting something. Amazing. So, if you want to learn more about it, then we can talk. Okay? And the CDs are there. Buy it for yourself and your friends. And hopefully we'll see you again. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hare Hare. Guru Nishya says yes, the schedule is on the website. Okay. So.
Mahatma Prabhu ki
Jai. Jai Prabhupada. Okay. We'll see you all when we see you.